Okay, if you have a question and you want Abigail to bring you a form, okay, if you want a written form, go ahead. Otherwise, we can just take some questions from the floor, and Abigail's the first question.
I just have a question. Sure. What brand are you having?
The brand is Clear Ballot.
Clear Ballot. And who programs them and how they get programmed to count, to do what you're saying on ballots?
My staff does.
Okay.
And
when you get information out of the houses, how do you transmit that to other parts of the country?
we have to put it on a thumb drive and remove the information from the tabulators, then take it to one of the computers that is connected to the internet and download it to our county, website and the state website.
And so before that, you were saying that you can do a quality check on and make sure everything's. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask a question about sort of the front end.
Okay.
When you get a registration form or somebody registers online, what are the processes you go through to make sure that person is a citizen, to verify their information, to make sure they're not registered in more than one place?
Okay. We have a centralized voter registration system in the state of Oregon. So that means all the counties are signed on to the state centralized voter registration system. So when somebody registers to vote, if they're already in the system, the name comes up with their name and date of birth. And now that most of them have driver's license on them too, it's very easy to verify them that way. So that we can take that whole voter record from another county and it'll be in our county then. We just by putting in the new address and whatever party, whatever information they give us. We do have a section on the bottom of the voter registration that asks people if they were registered before in another place to put that information down there. So if it's from another state, we do send that information out to other states to let them know that we have this registration here now. And other states do that for us too. So we get lists from, they're all sent to the Secretary of State's office. So we get lists from the Secretary of State that said this, sent in this information about voters that used to be in Oregon and now are registered in other states, so that we make sure that we don't have that information on there. But the other way too is all of our ballots are non-forwardable. So if we do send out a ballot to somebody that's no longer living in a place, if the post office has the information that the person is no longer there, they put the yellow label on the envelope and return it to us. We get undeliverable ballots all the time, and we update from the postal information. If it's an address within the county, we can change that. We do not send out a new ballot though unless somebody calls and asks for the new ballot. But we do update from that. If it's updated to a post office box, they're put on inactive and sent a card to ask them what their address is, because we don't know if they're still in the same home address. We have to know what your residence address is to know what style of ballot that you do get. So those are put on inactive and a card is sent. If the address is out of state, they're put on inactive and a card is sent. So whenever we put somebody on inactive, we automatically do a voter confirmation card sent out. So the person has the ability to tell us that, yeah, I moved to this new address within the county or within the state, even if they've moved to another address in the state or out of state. And that way we have the information from the voter. They don't always take care of it, but we always send those out. And so I guess, does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
We do get a lot of other lists death lists. We get those from the county health department monthly. We always look at the obituaries in the newspapers. And we get death lists from the state too, because all the death information goes to the state after it goes to the county health department. So they send those all out to us too, so that we have that information and take people off the voter rolls that passed away.
Francis,
2 questions. How long are the paper ballots kept? And what about a recount process? How does that happen?
Well, the paper ballots are kept for statutory, federally it's 22 months, but within the state it's 2 years. So it's essentially 24 months. So we keep those for 2 years after the election. But if somebody wants to have a recount, and they're willing to pay for it, because there's 2 ways that those can happen. If it's a close enough election to where it's 0.5% close, then an automatic recount is done, and that is a hand count. And those ballots are all counted by hand just for that race. And but if somebody wants to request a hand count, they can do it. They would have to pay for it though, and so they would have to put up money to have that done. Any other questions? Hey, right.
Hi, thank you very much, Dede, for the presentation. It was great. 2020, I got a chance to go to the courthouse and had like a field trip and got to see how everything was done. I was like amazed. I had no idea the process. And she was right at that time, of course, pre-COVID, there was more people sitting around the tables. Like, one would open the envelope, like she said, one would take out the security thing, and then they took me around to a closet that had questionable signatures and things like that. And I think it was like 2 weeks after the election, somebody would contact them, and they had like a 2-week period, get back to the courthouse and show proof of signature or whatever the case was. And it was really interesting. Like I said, I had no idea of the process. And I thought, why are people questioning that, there was voter fraud? Because it was so cut and dried and safe to me anyhow.
Mhm.
So anyhow, thank you. And Dede was there and kind of explained a few things, and somebody wandered, showed me around. It was very interesting.
We are having our public certification on October 21st at 9 a.m. if anybody wants to come and watch that. And then they can take a little tour of the office too.
Would be nice.
That's what I did last time. I showed them, where we did this and that and the other.
Mhm.
And let me just say one thing about running, what you said about 2 weeks. Nowadays it's changed to they have 3 weeks after the election to either update your registration. That's how you verify your signature. If it's changed, you have to re-register, because the law says we have to go by your registration, and or to sign for an unsigned ballot. So that's a little bit longer than it used to be. Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for doing this, because I think that the more transparency that we have going on, the more that we're talking,
I agree.
We all want good, safe elections.
Mhm.
I do have a question. In 2020, the adjudicated ballots, previously Coos County was about 1% that were adjudicated, right? And then in 2020, it jumped up to about 10%. So, and in 2022, in May, about 6%. Can you explain the procedures about how you go about determining a voter's original intent? And then just who is responsible ultimately for that adjudication?
Okay. it's always been the process. Back before we had this computer system, when the board workers would open up the ballots, they would inspect them. And if there was like, somebody had crossed out one and filled in another oval, then they can tell, and the board had to decide what the voter's intent was. And so that was the way they did it. Now, with this new system, the way the computer works is if there are two ovals that have any marks in them, those are brought up in the adjudication. And so the full-time staff, we have at least two people, although I did it sitting with them part of the time last time, will sit and look at all these ovals, all the ballots, because it's all scanned into the computer now, so you can look at the whole ballot and try and decide if we can tell what voter intent is. And most of the time, it's just a matter of somebody crossing out one ballot, one oval and marking the other, or not marking any ovals. There's a lot of them that come up that are just blank ovals, and all those will come up on the computer. The only thing that I can say as to why there were more adjudicated ballots than other times is just depends on what the voters were doing, because anytime that it comes up, it's just when there are extra marks in the ovals on the ballot. And so they made more mistakes or more erroneous marks in it. I don't know. Yeah, there was nothing though that we found when that was brought up that explains it otherwise. It's just mistakes made by the voters.
And then what happens after you have one of those anomalous ballots? What's the procedure with them?
Oh, it's all done right then and there in the computer. So you decide what the voter intent was, and that's what the vote is then, and it shows up on the system that way then.
So a group or a couple of you get together to decide what the intent was?
Yes, at least two people. Mhm.
What if the two people don't agree?
Then they'll bring me in.
All right. But it's always resolved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one way or another. Because that's what the law requires, is that we
So do they like sign off on that then?
they don't sign anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it comes up if they don't vote, if they leave a blank, they come up adjudicated too, right?
Yes, they do.
So they just don't leave it not voted, right? I mean, they don't.
No, they don't put anything in there. It's all left voted. I'm not voted, I mean, but all those blank ovals show up on the computer too, and she just has to scroll through those to see, whether there's anything that.
So it makes sense to me because some people just voted for president or just voted for, you see what I mean? And then they didn't vote anything else.
Yeah. Mhm. So, yes.
In a perfect world, what sort of resources would you like to see in the clerk's office for this job?
More staff. That's the biggest thing I'd say. I believe that the two workers we have in there right now are wonderful, and they're doing a wonderful job there. But they are ran pretty ragged, especially election time. But we've always been that way. I mean, I can remember working some all-night elections that really ran us ragged because we have to open at 7 in the morning and be there till whenever at night. Although things did change a little bit with the now that we can accept ballots that are postmarked by election day, we can accept them for up to 7 days after the election. And that was new just this year. So we're going to keep getting ballots in after election day for those 7 days. But they all have to come by the mail and they have to be postmarked by election day.
And they're all checked just like everything else.
Yes. Mhm. But we'll do another ballot run then on the 7th day after the mail comes in. We'll do another ballot run showing the rest of those ballots. And then we usually hold off on running the last bunch of ballots that for people that needed to correct their signatures or sign till that time period is over with. So that's now 21 days after the election. Did you have another question?
I just got a random question. Just popped in my head just now. Was there, do you know like the percentages this particular, this is such a different year. I mean, I remember the day we went in and we knew who won that day, right? So this last election in May, what was the percentage that came in early? What came in that day? And what was the percentage that trickled in postmarked?
Okay, there was, I don't really have percentages. I know that there was over 7,000 ballots that came in on the last day. And that's one thing that made it more difficult to have to process all those ballots on the last day with everybody, with the people that we had there that was able to work. And we did have a little bit of a problem with board workers that didn't show up. And so we had fewer board workers doing the work. So it did take a little bit longer. But then after the election, there were approximately 200 that came in afterward. And those mostly came in the next day. There was very few after that, just a few more stragglers in after that. But most of them came in the next day afterwards.
Do you think perhaps, I mean, if 7,000 came in the day, that maybe the number of people that feel less comfortable is much larger than just a small group?
It could be. Or maybe they're just getting, their word out to other people.
Yeah, I mean, that's a drop box, right? So that takes extra effort than just popping it in the mail.
Right. But drop boxes are set outside and they're handy to get to. They're 24/7, so that's really the best way to return them to us, and you don't have to depend on the mail. But the mail the post office has been worked very well with us too. I mean, they're really doing what they can to get everything postmarked for sure and to get to us as soon as possible. And that's why I believe that most of them came in on the next day. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you handle the ones that trickle in? You said some will come back in the day after you mail them, and so they trickle in. Can you talk about how they're stored?
Yeah, we have a security room that's inside the back room of the elections office that's locked, and that's where all the ballots are stored during the election time. And so whenever we have ballots that aren't processed, we've got a color code. Debbie Heller's good for that. She set up all these color-coded mail trays. So we know that, I don't have it memorized, a certain color is not processed, not signature verified or anything. And so the ones that came in afterwards were kept together to be processed together.
Okay.
After that, the mail came in on that 7th day. And so they're kept together, but they're all kept in the security room. When they come in, they're put together in the security room. The ones that are challenged are the ones that have a signature challenge for no signature or change of signature, those are kept in a certain tray that's marked challenge ballots. And We have reports that go with those, because all of that has been put in the computer, that it's challenged and the reason for the challenge. And so those reports are all kept there with them too. And it's all kept together in the security room whenever nobody's there, and it's locked.
When I asked about the vetted, the reason was, so many people were upset. And they thought that there was tremendous voter fraud, and they were seeing all these videos, I guess. My question was, I know that when I became an interfaith chaplain, when I put forward my request to be, they went all the way back through my high school records. My question was, for the people that work in the office, and I know they work hard, and we're glad they're there and we appreciate it. Do they have in-depth background checks and things like that before they're hired?
We've never had to do background checks for our for any of the workers in the courthouse, other than ones that have like the sheriff's office,
Okay.
things like that. Although, come to think of it, we're hiring new janitors, and they said they were waiting for the background checks to come back through them. So evidently they're doing that for the janitors now. So maybe they will be doing that more for people that have access to, especially different offices like janitors do.
That was my question.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we've never done that with our board workers. We have a list of board workers. We use a lot of word of mouth from people that know people.
Sure.
It's a small town.
Exactly. No, and
Yeah.
and I was just wondering, because
Yeah.
I was really surprised.
It may come to that,
Yeah, I was really surprised what I had to go through. I had to write it
Uh-huh.
all my life. I had to turn in a paper. They said, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, but it was all right. It was
Uh-huh.
good.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the term board worker. What is that?
Oh, okay. Well, we call them the boards they're the ones that open the envelopes and take the ballots out of the envelopes. And nowadays, that's all we have them do.
And the volunteers?
Well, in a way, I mean, they're paid minimum wage. Uh-huh. And so, but yeah, people do give us an indication that they'd like to do this. And so Lark has a list of names, and she has to go through them each election to see who she can get to work. And so right now she's waiting for 3 more people that have returned calls, but other than that, she's got everybody scheduled.
And it tends to be the same people election after election?
Quite a bit of them do, because we like to have the experienced people
Sure.
as much as we can. It's not always possible, but we like to. Yeah. Right.
So in terms of Coos County and your position as the Coos County clerk, around Oregon, do other clerks of other counties, do they follow the same procedures that you guys? So it's all kind of this uniform
Yes.
method of.
Yes, the state elections office puts out a vote by mail manual, and it's actually online. Anybody can bring it up and look at it. It's on the state elections website, and all of us have to follow the procedures that is set out by the state and legislature. A lot of it is just done by law, I did bring a little bit of the law with me today, because I thought I might be getting questions about the county positions that are on the ballot this time. And that is set out by Oregon law, that nonpartisan candidates that unless a candidate for nonpartisan office receives the majority of the votes cast for the office, the 2 candidates who receive the highest number of votes are nominated. And that's what happened with Melissa and Rod. Ooh, well, signs fell down. And then, like for Julie Brecky, it says the candidate, if a nominating petition or declaration of candidacy is filed. So if a candidate receives a majority of votes cast for the office, that candidate alone is nominated. Because there are 3 positions that are in the Oregon Constitution, and that's county clerk, treasurer, and sheriff. And it says in there, they shall be elected at general elections. So those 3 positions have to be elected at the general election. That's the reason for that. And then John Sweet had over 50%, and so he did not have to proceed. He was elected outright at the May election, the primary election. Seems like, oh, I did want to say that we do have a very good website too. We put a lot of information on our elections page on the website, and even on the recording side, you know, there's a lot of information for anybody that needs to do any land records or marriage licenses and all that we do in the county clerk's office. So we keep our website up to date, and there's a lot of information on it. Well, the website is actually co.coos.or.us.
Cuckoos are us.
Cuckoos are us, that's what we say.
Thanks.
But if you just Google Coos County, know that there's a Coos County in New Hampshire too.
Okay. So what was it again, Dede? I'm sorry.
That's okay. co.coos.or.us. And then under the departments, you would look for the county clerk. Hi, Richard.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Dede?
Do you anticipate an election in November that's going to go smoothly without all the?
I pray for it. Yes, I do anticipate that it'll go smoothly. I think it'll be good. Mhm. We'll work hard to make it as smooth as possible.
I had a question about priority. Apparently, in these places where the requests for information have kind of bogged the system down, they're getting first priority over the routine work. I just
No.
wondered how that works.
No, it doesn't actually get priority. So what our county council does is acknowledge receipt of a request and then say that we will get to it as we can because of work does take priority over that.
Okay, it seemed to me like that would be a logical way to do it,
Mhm.
that you could not allow someone to throw sand in the gears. In other words, that would
Well,
be
I
something
know
you couldn't happen.
some counties have gotten so many, they've had to hire an extra position to just handle those. Yeah, luckily, Coos County hasn't got to that point.
There's a lot of election information on our website too, and our website is not easily recitable like Cuckoos or us. But I usually just Google Coos County League of Women Voters, and then that pops right up. But it starts with yeah, which it's kind of counterintuitive, but that is our website. So there's a lot of information, and we try to keep it really, really current too. Our webmaster is here, Linda. Linda is our webmaster, and she keeps it as current as she possibly can. So between those 2 websites, you can pretty much get your questions answered. If you have friends who are not computer users, there is always the telephone.
Yes. And please call us with any questions that you might have, because I do want to stress that the county elections office or the county clerk's office and the state elections office are best resources for answering any kind of questions that you might have about them.
Because I think we can all agree that the integrity of the vote is the basis of our system of government. And when that is challenged or in any way does not have credence with the public, then we have a serious problem. So we're so happy that you came and talked to us today. If you have questions later on that you want to call Dede or consult the website, I encourage you to do so. Is there anything I forgot, ladies? Okay.
If
Yes.
anybody needs to register to vote, or if they moved and need to re-register, I've got registration forms outside on the table.
That was the thing I forgot. Yes. Okay. I'm going to close the meeting then. And thank you all so much for coming. And thank you to Dede.